Hey everyone, CWD Reviews here. I'm CWD, and this is going to be a review of the new Kanye West album, The Life of Pablo. I knew I was gonna see you again! I knew I was gonna see you again! Kanye West, if you're not in the know for some reason, you've been living in a cave maybe, is the infamous rapper, producer, and recently fashion designer. And this is his latest full-length album, his 7th, if I'm counting correctly. Now, like most people, I didn't really care that much for Kanye West. I used to think that just based on the singles, he was just another rapper. He was very overconfident. He was kind of an asshole. Still kind of is an asshole, but still. But then I actually listened to his music, as you can see. I essentially went chronological, from College Dropout and Late Registration. And it didn't quite hit me about why Kanye West was so unique until I listened to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I love you, I love you. That album featured a lot of forward-thinking, eclectic, and just pretty much ingenious beats and production and sampling. It wasn't just that, it was also the fact that Ye was really charismatic over all these beats. He had a lot of witty wordplay over it, as well as all of his other albums, for the most part. And the features were really good. It's very rare you'll ever catch me even saying, oh, this Rick Ross feature is decent, oh, this Nicki Minaj feature is decent. So all the features, with the exception of Big Sean, really good. So yeah, I was anticipating this album a lot. I liked Yeezus, but that album to me was too underdeveloped for words in comparison to what Kanye was able to put out since around 2014 when he said he was making this album. I was most certainly looking forward to it. Though, not a lot of people seem to be. See, it's my belief that Kanye West, to me, is one of the most polarizing figures in music. There is no in-between people for Kanye West fans. You either absolutely despise him, or you absolutely love him, and there's flaws with both, obviously. If you completely despise him, you're ignoring the fact that he has done so much for the world of hip-hop and music in general. So many musicians such as Paul McCartney, Elton John, perhaps Dave Grohl, I believe, and a slew of others have expressed their admiration for this man and has maybe influenced by him as well, to a certain degree. And then the people that absolutely love him have to come to terms with the fact that his personal life isn't exactly one to condone completely, obviously. He's been in personal debt recently. He's got married to one of the most infamous American families. He's heckled back on the Grammys last year. He's just been getting into a lot of trouble with the media, and the media seems to really love to eat up all of Kanye's antics, whether that be on Twitter or any kind of social media place or just in real life. There's not a single artist that has found this balance between production and bars and rapping as Kanye has, and he's able to make them go hand in hand particularly well. Maybe not particularly well all the time, but particularly well on average, certainly. And this album, The Life of Pablo, seems to be the continuation of that. I think what on this album that was missing on Yeezus was a concept. On previous albums, he certainly had a concept, in which case he had this character portrait that he's trying to paint. Take College Dropout, for example, where he was trying to craft this character portrait of someone that's trying to make it in the rap game, make it in the world of music, and just keep longing for it and staying vigilant and passionate and ambitious for it. Albums like Late Registration and Graduation, he seems to have obtained this, and now that he's got a slew of other enemies he needs to slay. And throughout the course of these albums, 808s and Heartbreak, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and with the exception of Yeezus, which, like I said, was too underdeveloped to possibly even have a concept, each album seemed to have some kind of enemy he had to slay, and maybe arguably Yeezus didn't have an enemy. It was more Kanye getting indulgent and perhaps victorious over having this status in the music. And now that Life of Pablo's come back, I think Ye now has this new enemy he needs to acknowledge. And I think that enemy is, well, himself. The album kicks off with Ultralight Beams, which, fantastic opener, by the way. The beat itself is really pendulum-like. It's really gospel-tinged with all these really warm bass and like organ-like synth, kind of like a torch song thing. Kanye pretty much singing about your terroristic attack in Paris in November. Seems to be getting more spiritual and trying to find some kind of homeostasis spiritually. And then there's Chance the Rapper, who comes in and has like one of the best verses on the entire record. He sounds very tender. He sounds very vulnerable. It's really good. I especially like when he says, "I met Kanye West, so now I can't fail." I thought that was really touching. Kirk Franklin also has like this really pastor-like feature that's the latter half of the track, which I thought was really uplifting. And then you start to get an idea how incohesive this album gets, which served its point with the concept. With the couple of tracks, The Father Stretched My Hands. Part 1 has this really demo-ish vibe to it, with like these hi-hats that are kind of tinny, but I still enjoy the production a lot. Even Kid Cudi himself comes in, and while I'm not particularly that fond of Kid Cudi, I still think he was tolerable on this track. What sticks out to me is this line, and it kind of sullies like the other lines that come out of the track, which is okay. It's a brief track anyway, but he says, "Having sex with this model, and she just bleached her asshole. I got some of it on my t-shirt, and now I feel like an asshole." Okay. But then it glides into the second part, which is much better. I'm actually not sure why this was separated into 2 tracks. But the second half is like much better. The production all of a sudden lives up and it gets into kind of a banger territory. Plus Ye comes in this like really spiraling flow about his mother being dead, his father being in a financial situation, which he notes that the market crashing causes divorces, and that he was in a car crash that resulted in surgery and stitches in his jaw that was well noted in College Dropout. And then we get to the track Famous, which has the infamous line about Taylor Swift. "I feel like Taylor and I could still have sex. I made that bitch famous." Which, if you've been following Kanye's syntax over the course of a decade, it's clear that he's not really serious with that line, obviously. Ye sounds really hilarious on this track, really charismatic and formidable. Rihanna sings on the hook really well. Swizz Beatz does like these ad-libs that add to how engaging the track is. And the beat itself, particularly glossy, particularly interesting. Especially when it gets in the last half of the track. Kanye infamously chops up vocal snippets from the Nina Simone sample this track came from, which I thought was pretty cool. And then there's a track, Feedback. Really, really enjoyable track for me anyway. As Ye comes in as this like really witty line where he says, "You've been sleeping on me, huh? Have you enjoyed a good snooze?" And he has these lines about hands up, don't shoot, because that's what the cops taught us. Cops just shoot them anyway. And he has like all these lines where he gets infamously braggadocious, and he comes off as really charismatic, interesting. Especially with this beat going on, where this synth pattern gets really formidable and the sub bass is like sinister. And then there's like this little snippet where the beat goes away and this Ghetto Oprah mini skit going on. He's like, "Oh, hold on, I'm the Ghetto Oprah. You get a fur, you get a fur, you get a fur. Big booty bitch for you." I thought that was hilarious. And then we get to the track Lowlight, which, again, Lowlight and Highlight, I'm not sure why they were separate tracks. I think they could have been fused into one. Lowlight had a pretty indecent beat and like this really uplifting spoken words from this woman about spirituality and all that, which I thought was interesting. But not really a highlight for me on the track listing here. But then we get to this track Highlight. It actually features Young Thug on it, funny enough. He does his part well. But it also features this perhaps hilariously bad line where he says, "I wish my dick had GoPro, so that way I could play that shit back in slow-mo. I made an amateur video, now I should go." What? The beat on it's like pretty decent enough. It's engaging from beginning to end. Plus he has like this really funny line about Ray J, where he says he and Ray J could still be friends, even though they love the same bitch. Yeah, he's hit it first, but the problem is Kanye's rich. Okay. We get to the Freestyle 4, which is pretty much my least favorite track in the whole album. It sounds like what it is. It's like a kind of a freestyle thing, but really creepy and really off kilter. There's like these really shrill string patterns going on. Kanye sounds like he's about to like go off with like these ha ha, and then he finally comes in with like these start-stop flows about like nonsensical sex with his wife on a dinner table. First couple listens I didn't like at all, but it's grown on me and I realized how eccentric and just wild it's really trying to do. Then we get to the next track, I Love Kanye, which is a 45-second a cappella thing about Kanye getting self-aware about what people think about Kanye and what people seem to have thought about Kanye and all this stuff. He mentions how he chopped up Soul, college dropout, and now he's rude and kind of an asshole, and there's all these like copycat Kanyes and all that. It's funny. It doesn't add much to the album, but it's funny. Then we get to the track Waves, which was a track that held up the fucking album to begin with for at the last minute, when I don't see why. I like the beat, but who asked for a Chris Brown feature? It's like the track was like literally made at the last minute, and I don't see why it exists, honestly. But then it picks up at the track FML, which features The Weeknd. He has a nice hook on the track. He's doing his falsetto thing. Weeknd's doing his thing. That's cool. Ye seems to get really introspective and really haunting about his life and his relationship with his women. He seems to note that he needs to give up these women in order for his current marriage to survive. Plus the beat sounds really moody and it like builds really well. Real Friends, which was one of the Good Friday singles, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's got this really cloud rap-ish vibe, this really subdued beat pattern going on. I like the production a lot. But what I also like, what Kanye is saying, he seems to see himself as both a shitty friend and a shitty family member. He couldn't tell you how old someone's son is or anything like that, and how a lot of people seem to be abusing his friendship and his trust. And this is interesting. Where was this Kanye 3 years ago? I mean, I liked Yeezus, but where was this Kanye 3 years ago? Then we get to the track Wolves. Wolves seems to be about where he's at with how the media treats him and his family, and the death of his mother. If his mother lived long enough to see what Kanye has become now, she would think that he's much too wild. Plus, like, he's a really surprised Frank Ocean feature that is on the latter half, which I thought was really cool. Frank, yeah, where's the fucking album, man? And then there's this Silver Surfers intermission, which is just him talking to Max B, and it doesn't add much to the album. It's like one of those little small snippet detours. Then we get to the track 30 Hours, which I liked the track a lot at first, but then it kind of wore off on me as soon as I realized that the first half of the track, which is co-produced by Kareem Riggins from what I understand, it seems to be to me that Ye is just, on the first half, getting really introspective and really funny, which I liked a lot. And then the second half, he's just ad-libbing and doing these shout-outs and talking to someone on the phone, which seems kind of lazy to me. It should have probably been, like, the last track on the album. I mean, it could have possibly replaced Fade, and it would have done itself justice. But then we get to my favorite track on the album, No More Parties in L.A. Madlib. Thank God for Madlib. He hops on this track and he creates this nice boom bap-ish banger that like justifies its 6 minutes in length. Kendrick Lamar is on this track. He's excellent on it. I like the line where he says, there's a woman who's looking for an A-list rapper. Well, spin around and say the alphabet's backwards. But then Kanye comes and he's rapping like he hasn't rapped in years, and he acknowledges that in the track, and yeah, it's really refreshing to hear him go in, and even better than what Kendrick is doing, surprisingly enough. I mean, what world is this where Kanye is rapping better than Kendrick Lamar? But then we get to the track Facts, which I did not like the initial version of at all, especially since it's just a freestyle just a Nike diss track of some kind. So the lyricism is still asinine on this version, but the production is much better, much more lively. Ye sounds more formidable on the track. To a certain degree, I enjoy it. I mean, again, I don't like the lyrics, but I enjoy the beat and Kanye's flow on it, so 2 out of 3 isn't too bad. It's not one of my favorite tracks, obviously, but still. And then the closing track, Fade, kind of conflicted by it. Kanye lyrically is nowhere to be found on the track, but it seems to serve as a pretty cool outro for the album. I mean, it's not Ultralight Beam's great, the way it was a great opener. If Fade's not that, but it seems to build really well, and it keeps me engaged and just closes out the album particularly well. This album, I think, is gonna get a lot of people's heads scratching. It's not gonna change the minds of people that previously despised Kanye or the people that previously loved Kanye. I mean, it's not gonna do anything like that at all. This seems like more of a personal venture through the fluctuations of Kanye's psyche. I think this is a particularly good album. It's still not on the level of like Kanye's previous material, obviously, but to have built up so much hype since 2014, or maybe even 2015, and to have given us a project after so much anticipation, and it pay off, for the most part, really well, I think that's really commendable for Kanye to do. I mean, yeah, it's got a few bad lines, and maybe 2 or 3 forgettable songs, and, like, snippets that don't really add much to the album, but the core of the record, most of it, like practically nearly all of it, I think is really good. I think it's not going to change the minds of most people how already they feel about Kanye, but I couldn't have asked for a better album from the man that put out something as underdeveloped as Yeezus, and I'm glad it paid off particularly well. This album is a plus 2.3 out of plus 3. So yeah, I enjoyed this album quite a bit. From what it looks like, it's probably going to be my favorite album of this month. But yeah, if you've given this album a listen, and if you haven't yet, I understand the limited capacity right now, but if you have given this album a listen, what'd you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What should I consider reviewing next? This is CWD Reviews here, signing off.